Woo! Putting off some heat. Well, good day, YouTubers. Uncle Dave from DEECEE's Adventures. Welcome back to another video. Well, in today's video, I wanted to take a couple minutes here to talk about the wood stove I've been using at camp all winter this year, and I used it in the canvas tent last summer. And I used it in the canvas tent the summer before that, and for part of the winter last winter in the cabin. Also, the first video I did on the wood stove that we got at the survival property has gotten a lot of views, got a lot of comments, because everybody was pretty vocal about that video. But that was that Chinese knockoff military style cylinder stove. And I got a good couple years out of that. That was a $65 stove, and that stove sucked compared to this one. So this is the Alpine Camp Chef by Camp Chef, and I bought it on Amazon for $200 or $199. It's pretty much been that same price for the last 3 years, and I own two of them now. I have one for the canvas tent that's packed up in the shed with the canvas tent, and then I have this one which was in the canvas tent the first season, and this was the first one I bought. And then when I moved into the cabin from the canvas tent, I had originally bought a cast iron stove, which I have in the shed, for this camp. But this camp is one of those small pre-made Amish cabin tents. It's a 10 by 20 camp, and the cast iron stove just got way too hot in here. I mean, it's getting way too hot right now because I've got the stove loaded pretty hard right now. And this cabin's just so small, it gets way too hot. So I ended up putting this stove from the canvas tent in the cabin. And it really is a canvas tent type style stove. I mean, you can obviously use it for whatever, but I think its main design was for putting in a canvas tent. And it comes with a 5-inch pipe, and the pipe that it comes with, it all goes inside each other. It's a nesting pipe. And the dampener comes out off of there, so you can nest it all. That way you can put all the piping right in the stove, so when you're traveling with it, the legs, and it comes with 2 racks, a rack like this that you have on both sides, but I'm not using the one on the other side because I ended up buying the water tank that they offer for this thing. But they come with these 2 racks. All of this stuff comes off and goes right inside the stove, legs and all. And that way you can easily travel with it and, you know, bring it to wherever you're setting your canvas tent up. It's a nice stove. Definitely compared to the last stove, it's a real nice stove. But in general, it's a real nice stove too. Like, the welding and everything on it is really nice. They did a really good job. It's pretty heavy steel for a cylinder stove. This is pretty heavy stuff. I can't say. You'd probably get 3 or 4 years before you'd have any problems with burning through it. And I put stones on the bottom. When I had the last video, a lot of my subscribers and random people who had seen the video had recommended I put sand or stone in the bottom of the stove to give it a longer life, since it's not a cast iron stove. And so what I did was I took all the gravel that I have in the driveway that we make the driveway with, and I sifted that so it was only like really small, like 1/4 to 1/2 inch stones. So there's no sand in it. And then I put a little teeny layer of sand, and then I put like a 2-inch layer of those little teeny stones, and then I put the rack that the stove came with back on top of that. And I think that'll make it last a lot longer. You'll probably get like 5-6 years out of this stove at least with a layer of stone like that. And since this is such a small cabin, I don't keep it burning all night with a really hot bed of coals. Like I let it heat up and then cool down and then heat up, and that's how I kind of keep this cabin at the temperatures I like it. So the stove will last a lot longer when you're running it like that too. If you had this stove in a cabin where you had to run a really hot coal base the entire night, all winter, then yeah, you only get 2 or 3 years out of it. But that said, this is a really nice stove for a cylinder stove. Alpine Camp Chef, it all folds into itself, and it has this flat top, so during the winter I do all my cooking here on this flat top. I boil water. This is actually the water that I'm preparing for a shower tonight because I don't have any running water here, and I have this pump shower that I pump by hand, and I'm trying to get 3 gallons of water warmed up for that. And then I'll put a gallon of cold water in to even it out afterwards, get it the perfect temperature. I do that all on the stove, right on the Camp Chef. And like I said, I'll set you up guys on another shot so we can take a look. This stove only has one place that the air comes from, and that's around around the door, and then this little slider here. But let's get set up in front of the door so I can talk about that a little bit. Alright, here we are in front of the stove. So we have the dampener that's on the pipe that we were talking about earlier. And then, so that helps control the air a little bit. And then when we get to the front of the stove here, the only way the air can get into the stove is through this slider right here, open and shut, and then the door. See, it's cranking in there real good right now. And there's the grate that it comes with. So under that grate, there's like a layer of stones, like little pebble stones. But obviously there's no stones or sand on the side that still sometimes get long exposure to heat. So I don't know. It's a pretty thick stove, but we'll see how long it lasts. But this is my second winter. It's my first full winter, and then last winter I was using it as a camp. But now I'm here full time, and this is my first full winter, and it's doing a good job. It doesn't look like there's any like areas where it's burning through, or you know, even when it's really hot and it's at night, I can't see any hot spots through the side of the stove like I could on that last stove I had. But anyways, like I was saying, the only way the air can come through the stove is around the door, which the way the door is designed, once it has soot around it and stuff, it really doesn't leak any air around the door. And then this little slider. And then if you open it up, you'll hear the air chugging, and then it'll get those coals really hot. If your fire is not like quite hot enough, you just open that up and get it chugging real hard. And then when you close it, it'll start radiating that heat, and it works really good. Like even stoves I've had that are like nice stoves in like nice rentals that I've been in, they're like stove systems. This is probably the easiest stove I've ever worked with as far as controlling the airflow. Even in nice stoves, it isn't as easy as this Alpine Camp Chef is. And it's because this is the only where air comes in. So if you close it and keep it shut down too much, like some stoves you can't shut down all the way. You know, you shut it down, but it still gets enough air that the fire won't die. Well, this stove, you can kill the fire because that's the only way the air comes in is right here. So if you shut it down too much, you can kill the fire. But if you're in a cabin like mine, yeah, once you shut that down, it gets really hot at first. But then if you kill the fire by starving it of oxygen, you can cool things down in here, which is nice because this cabin's so small that even if it's single digits out there, if you get this thing going too hot, you're going to burn yourself out of this cabin. And with this control here, I can really control it. And if you have it like all the way open, it'll just be teeny little slits, and that's enough air to keep it going at night. So when I get the stove built up, I build it up and warm the cabin up, and then I shut it all the way down and then let it burn really slow all night. And then that usually keeps it pretty warm in here. And then if it's really cold, sometimes I'll put more fire on at like 3 in the morning. I'll put more wood on the fire and keep it going. Or sometimes I just let it go out, and then at like 6 o'clock, 7 in the morning when I get up and out of bed, I'll get it going again. And even if it's in the single digits outside, the cabin really won't drop below 55 degrees. So I really like that. I'd say for what kind of stove it is, like a canvas tent semi-cheap stove, like $200 isn't super cheap as far as a canvas tent stove goes, but it's pretty cheap actually. And it's definitely cheap for a stove in your cabin that's performing well enough to heat your cabin all winter. And I really like how I can control this thing. Like, I can control this thing just better than any stove I've ever had. So that's why I ended up with it in the cabin, and it's still in the cabin, because I can control it better than I can the cast iron stove that I bought for the cabin. So I really like that, and I'd say I definitely recommend the stove. Try to give you a look without shaking it up, but those are the legs. They're just little like hollow legs that come on and off, and you know, when you're not using it, you can put them right inside the stove. But here we go right here. This is the water tank, and I have dirty water in there right now because I just did dishes, and this is where I do all my dishes and do all my hot water. This is an off-grid cabin, and it's a dry cabin, so I don't have any running water here. This tank is made by Camp Chef. It's for the Alpine Camp Chef stove. It costs about $80, give or take, depending on when you order it on Amazon. And I really love it. It's my only hot water, so obviously I love it. And being able to wash your hands and wash dishes with hot water is like priceless. You definitely need that when you're out here. But this faucet here is dripping. And it's been dripping for like 6 months now, and I've only had this thing for a little over a year and a half. Yeah, the water tank I've only had for about a year, and it's been dripping for 6 months of that, so that's kind of disappointing. And when I contacted them about it, they told me that they can send me a replacement for $10, which, you know, I kind of think is defective because all the internals have rusted out of it, which you probably shouldn't have any kind of metal that can rust in a faucet, because it's going to be contact with water obviously all the time, and it's going to rust. So anyways, that's beside the point. I'm going to buy a new one anyways because it's my only hot water, so I have to have this thing. Well, they also told me that the only way I can buy it is by calling and ordering over the phone with my credit card, which I hate doing that. I spent the last 3 months trying to convince them to put this item on their Amazon store, and for some reason I can't convince them to do it. And it's also like a 20 to 40 minute wait to even talk to anybody when you call the number they gave me. So I've been disappointed with that, you know, and kind of disappointed with this tank because of that. But other than that, the tank has worked out good. Like, the faucet is the only problem. Like, everything else has worked out good. And everything else as far as the stove goes has worked out really good. I really like this stove, this Alpine Camp Chef. But again, they want me to call in and order this thing over the phone, which sucks. Like, I'm not happy about that. So, Camp Chef, if you're listening, you got to change that. All your accessories need to be available through Amazon because people trust it. Or even your website. I mean, it's not even on your own website, and you guys have a website. So, come on, guys, pull it together. But, all together. Actually, the lighting sucks right here. But altogether, Alpine Camp Chef, I really like this stove. And like I said, I have 2 of them. I own one that's for the canvas tent, and I use as a backup just in case something happened. But this thing's built pretty solid for a $200 stove. I think you could definitely get 3 to 5 years out of it without having to worry if you're an off-gridder and you're trying to like find a cheap stove that you can count on. This is a pretty good one, and the flat top just makes it so easy to do all your cooking and everything, and it's so light. Like, one of the things with stoves is they can be really heavy and a pain in the butt to move around, and I have a really small amount of space here in this cabin, so sometimes I'll have to move stuff into this room that's right here. Like, the opening to the room is right next to the stove. And that's so the heat from the stove can pass into that room easily and also heat this room. You know, it's a small cabin. I want to heat both rooms with a very small amount of wood. That's what I'm trying to do out here. I'm almost through my winter, and I didn't even go through half of my 3 cords this year. So I really saved on wood, and I'm trying to cut down environmentally too, you know. So this is a great stove for all of that. Like, I've cut down on how much wood I use by a lot. Like, everybody was telling me I was gonna need at least 4 cord to live out here every winter, and I cut 3 cord this year, and I haven't even gone through it. I cook all my stuff during the winter. I save a lot of propane, and it's really easy to move around and do what I need to do with it. So I give it a 5-star pretty much. I say if you're looking for a stove like this, if you're looking for a canvas tent stove especially, all the stoves that they sell at these canvas tent companies are way more expensive, and I'd say this one is just as good or better. Like, the design and shape of it, you can hold a lot of wood. You can put a lot of wood in this thing, but it's also small. Like, the round shape that they made this out of, has a lot more room for putting wood in there and getting a good fire going, and it also provides more top room for cooking and stuff. You know, I mean, Camp Chef, their whole thing is like outdoor cooking, so that's what they design their products around, and they did a really good job with this one because it's really conducive to good outdoor cooking and cooking in my cabin and in the canvas tent. So Uncle Dave with DEECEE's Adventures, the Alpine Camp Stove, thank you for joining us on another video. Rate, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.